AITA for telling my brother's wife she's responsible for his health declining. My brother 30, is diabetic. Has type 1 diabetes and got it from when he was young. As his older sibling, I grew up watching my parents managing this condition for him. He has always been traumatized by this condition and never come to terms with it, so what he used to and still does is act like his condition doesn't exist. The family, mom is now deceased, didn't know how to handle it because if we let him act like that then there would major consequences, so we took it upon ourselves to manage his condition for him. We'd watch his eating habits and correct them, watch his insulin intake, and encourage him to live healthy. When he brought his now wife home, we told her how it is and that he can be reckless and in denial about his condition, and so she needed to help and work with us and keep an eye on him. She did her best at first but started caving into his complaints about not being able to eat this or that, or when he complains about his insulin intake and having to pay for it. He got increasingly worse the past 3 months. We didn't know exactly what was going on till his wife called to tell us he was in the hospital because of a hyperglycemic episode. His blood sugar levels were too high, he almost went into a diabetic coma. The reason for this was because he wasn't taking the right dosage of insulin. I talked to his wife and had an argument with her. She said he deliberately kept stretching out his insulin dosage to be able to save insulin and not have to buy it. I told her still she should have had kept an eye on him. It's unfortunate that their insurance is screwed and financial situation is rough, but she should have stopped him and not stood there watching. She said I was being too hard on her, but I told her that if he was doing this under the family's watch we wouldn't have allowed it, and so she bears part of the blame for him staying in the hospital. She started crying and asked for a minute for herself. I went home because I couldn't see him after waiting for long. My dad called later asking about my conversation with sister-in-law. I refrained from talking about it, but he said she called him and told him everything. He said I shouldn't have said this to her and made her feel guilty. I said I was just disappointed she let this happen and expected her to be the responsible one if my brother wasn't. He said I have to apologize, but I'm unsure whether I was completely at fault here because I feel there's a bit of neglect on her part. Comments. YTA. My father and uncle have both had type 1 since they were 5 years old. They are both now late 60s. Back then it was a death sentence. Docs told them they'd be lucky to see 30. Since children they were able to manage their health with little to no issues. In my 40 years of life I've seen my father go into diabetic shock once, and it was after a day of him pushing himself too hard in a home renovation. TLDR of this is your brother as an adult. As such it is his responsibility alone to manage his health. His wife is there as a support, not as a nurse. Your parents failed him, and now he's failing himself. You taking it out on her is unjustified. There's something very very wrong here, and it not your brother's wife. Your brother is diabetic. His condition is his responsibility. By the family taking control and enabling him to devolve himself of any responsibility, you have enabled him to opt out of his own care. His wife is not responsible for his condition or managing his condition. Because you and the family have become used to looking after him, you have mistakenly assumed that this is also the role of his wife. It is not. I'd love to think that having a hypo attack may have scared your brother into taking control of his own health and his own life, but somehow I feel it unlikely. If you want to lay the blame anywhere, then lay it on yourself and your own family for letting him get away with this bullshit for so long. He needs a huge wake-up call. His first hypo attack probably isn't enough. He will have more, and one day it is very probable that he will coma and die. That's the hard truth. Eating what he likes and injecting less insulin will hasten that event, and there is nothing you can do about it. It's his business. He is in control of his own destiny and no one can or should interfere with this. Had you not taken over in the first place, he probably wouldn't have been in this position. So lay off his wife. It was probably terrifying for her. She didn't sign up to be his mother, his nurse or his keeper, she signed up to be his wife. She cannot police him 24 hours a day, and not should she. This is a chance for a massive reality check for you all. Don't let it pass you by. And yes, YTA. but only because of your own ignorance about responsibilities. YTA He's a grown-ass man and she's his wife, not his maid. My little cousin is 7 this year. He knows what he should be eating and has to help calculate his insulin every time he eats. It's his health condition and he's going to have to learn to manage it. He's a child and he get on just fine. Your brother is a grown-ass man and can't do it. YTA. Your brother is a grown-ass man, not a child, and his wife is not his mother. She doesn't have to baby him and hold his hand through his treatment. If he's neglecting his health, that's on him, not on his wife for not playing mommy for him. I mean, what was she supposed to do if he refuses to take care of his health? Ground him? Come on, up. And in fact, I suspect you and your family's clear coddling of your brother is the reason he seems incapable of taking care of himself without being monitored and disciplined into it. YTA. Your brother is the one who isn't managing his condition. When your family were handling everything for him, there were multiple people checking his food, his blood sugar, his dosage, etc. Now it's just her, they've got crap insurance, and she's the only one there. Well, you're the one who blamed her for your brother not managing his condition, so not sure how it's not your fault. The words came from your mouth. Why didn't your brother get therapy as a child? Why was he not taught how to manage his condition? Why was it all left to his wife? As in your brother. He stretched his insulin. She's just trying to pick up the pieces. YTA I'm type 1 and it's no one else's responsibility to manage my diabetes. If your brother hasn't come to terms with his diabetes, then he needs to do something about that. Your family robbed your brother of the opportunity to take responsibility for his health. Then you pushed that responsibility onto his wife without even considering whether she wanted that responsibility. Then, when they are clearly struggling to pay for his medication, you berate the wife. Huge asshole. YTA. I'm gonna be harsh here because I think you and your family need it. Your brother is an adult. If he isn't willing to face reality and deal with it accordingly, then any health issues that he has due to him being a #seeking idiot are his responsibility, no one else's. Definitely not his wife's. She is not a nurse or his mother. He is not a 2-year-old. You have all enabled him since he developed diabetes. He needs to grow the #CK up and deal with his diabetes or it will kill him. It isn't going away. It won't magically disappear because he chooses to ignore it. YTA. You and your family kept pampering a child and then a grown-up man to keep being in denial and not have control of his life, and you suddenly want someone else to take the blame of your brother's irresponsibility? YTA. He is a grown-ass man. He should stop being in denial and learn to effing care for himself. His wife is not mommy and does not need to watch his every move. He should grow the fuck up and do what he needs for himself. If he doesn't want to, then he needs to learn the consequences of his actions, being his health declining and possible coma or death. You trying to blame her makes you a massive a-hole. She is not to blame for your family enabling him and letting him be in denial all these years. YTA Holy shit. You're still married an adult. It is not her job to parent your brother. The failing here is on you and your family for not forcing him to come to terms with his illness and force him to manage it. No, you babysat him and micromanaged him and he never had to face the consequences of his refusal to accept his condition. And then you flat out told your Sil that she was now in charge of parenting a grown-ass man. WHO can make his own decisions. Are you for serious right now? A grown-ass man who has dealt with this illness for the bulk of his life and has refused to manage it and keep it under control himself is not her fault. You had him for the first how many years? Get over yourself and apologize because that's absolutely repulsive behavior. Neglect? Are you kidding? He's a literal adult. It's not his wife's job to manage him like a child. Yes, she should know what to do to help in an emergency, but it's his body and his life. Butt out, he's the asshole. YTA He's not a child or a pet. He's a grown man and is the only one responsible for his health. You all did him a grave disservice by letting him live in denial about it as long as you did. It's unrealistic and unfair of you all to expect his wife to continue your family's mistaken way of managing his condition. Your whole family are the assholes because you let your brother ignore this. I'm type 1. I can eat whatever I want because I can take insulin to cover it. If he has bad or no insurance, he needs a job that may not pay as well as another but had good insurance. That's what I did. But the main point is, he can't ignore it and he has to grow up and be an adult. It's not his wife's fault, it's his. They are spouses, not mother and son. YTA. It's no one's responsibility but your brother to manage his condition. It seems like he got used to being coddled by his family and now doesn't know how to even manage it himself or realize what can happen to him if he doesn't. She's his wife, and while she should encourage him to properly care for himself, she's not his nanny. It sounds like she tried and got fed up with having to care for a child who didn't want to be cared for. Did you like this Reddit AITA story? Please leave a comment and subscribe for more vids like this.